Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah.
So you're probably here because you're a Scrum Master or a project manager or a technical program manager.
Most likely.
And you're either prepping for some interviews
Oh, yeah.
or just looking to brush up on some key concepts.
Yep.
And today we're going to demystify some project estimation techniques,
Okay.
specifically for software and digital products.
Sounds good.
And we're not just going to define them.
Right.
We're going to really try to understand why certain methods
Yeah.
work best in this kind of fast-paced,
Yeah.
constantly changing world of software.
For sure, because a lot of people, I think when they think about estimation, they think about predicting the future
Right.
with pinpoint accuracy.
Yeah.
But it's really about setting realistic expectations
Right.
and using those expectations and estimations to guide informed decisions
Of that.
in a world where things are always changing.
Yeah, you're not a fortune teller. You're like a strategic guide.
Exactly.
So let's start with the basics. I think we've all heard of traditional estimation methods like bottom-up estimation and analogous estimation.
Those are the classics.
Those are the classics.
Yeah.
They sound good on paper.
Yeah, they do.
But
in the world of software, they often fall short.
okay, why is that?
Well, so if you think about bottom-up estimation where you list every tiny task and you add up the hours,
Yeah.
that assumes that you know everything up front.
Right.
But with software, requirements evolve, new features pop up, unexpected challenges emerge. It's like nailing down a moving target.
It's like you're trying to build a car while you're driving it.
Exactly, yeah. And then with analogous estimation, where you base your estimates on similar past projects,
Okay.
that only works if you have a near perfect historical match,
Yeah.
which is rare in software development because everything is so unique.
Right. And every project, even if you're building kind of a similar thing, every project has its own little quirks and things.
Absolutely. And plus, how do you account for the unknowns that come up? Because software development is very creative problem-solving work.
Yeah.
It's not just, a repetitive task.
You can't treat it like building a bridge where you know exactly how many of this and that you need to build this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
So traditional methods, they really struggle with scope creep and that uncertainty.
So if those traditional methods aren't really working for us in the software world, what are our options then?
Well, that's where we get into the modern Agile-friendly estimation techniques.
Okay, I like the sound of that.
Yeah, and these embrace change, and they really focus on relative estimation.
Okay.
So instead of assigning absolute values, you're comparing the tasks to one another.
So instead of saying this will take 20 hours, you're saying this task is twice as complex as this other task.
Exactly.
Okay.
And there are a few popular techniques within relative estimation that can be super helpful for Scrum Masters and project managers and technical program managers.
So what's the first one that comes to mind?
Well, the most popular one is probably story points.
Story points.
Yeah.
We use the Fibonacci sequence for that, right?
That's
Like 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, and so on.
Exactly.
To kind of represent the relative size and complexity.
Yes.
But sometimes I feel like we're just throwing darts at a board when we're doing that.
I think the trick with story points is to understand your team's velocity.
Okay.
So once you kind of get a sense of how many story points they can realistically complete within a sprint, you can use that information to really, forecast timelines and manage expectations much better.
So it's not just about guessing the size of the task, but you're using that information to plan your sprints and your releases more effectively.
Yes, it's about leveraging that data to make good decisions.
Okay.
When you have some uncertainty.
I like that.
And then for times when you need something quicker, a little bit less intimidating, especially when you're working with stakeholders who might not be as familiar with Agile methodologies.
Okay.
There's always T-shirt sizing.
T-shirt sizing.
Yeah.
I love that.
It's a little bit more approachable, right?
Yeah. Is this a medium? Oh my God, is this extra large?
Exactly. And it's a great way to just get a general sense of the scope and to prioritize work, especially for newer teams or when you're dealing with a lot of unknowns.
And so we've got story points, we've got T-shirt sizing in our Agile estimation toolbox. What else are we packing in there?
Well, there's another method called ideal days.
Ooh, ideal days.
Yeah.
It sounds like a perfect world
Perfect.
where there are no distractions and every task just kind of flows smoothly.
It would be nice.
Yeah, sign me up for that world.
I know, me too.
But I'm guessing it's not that simple.
It's not because, you've got to remember that we don't live in a perfect world.
Right.
We have meetings.
Right.
We have, urgent requests. and sometimes fires to put out.
So ideal days are more of like a starting point,
Okay.
have an end point.
Yeah, you really need to adjust those ideal day estimates upward
Okay.
to factor in the overhead and distractions.
So we've explored a few different techniques for relative estimation.
Yes.
And this already feels a lot more agile friendly
It is.
than, those traditional methods
For sure.
that we were talking about.
Yeah.
But how do we actually get everyone on the team on the same page when we're doing estimation?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like you get these wildly different estimations.
Yeah.
And that can really throw a project off track.
That's where the beauty of collaborative estimation comes in. And one of the most popular techniques for this is planning poker.
Planning poker.
Yeah.
Are we talking like cards and chips here?
We are talking cards.
Right.
We're not going to the casino or anything.
Okay, good.
But it's a really fun and engaging way to bring the whole team into the estimation process.
I like it.
So each team member gets a deck of cards with the story point values on them.
Okay.
And then, the product owner or whoever will describe a user story, and everybody secretly chooses a card that represents their estimate for that story.
So I'm picturing everybody like huddled around a table, cards like held close to their chest.
Yeah.
And there's like some serious strategic thinking going on.
There can be.
So what happens when all the cards are on the table?
Well, then everybody reveals their cards at the same time.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
It is.
What if everybody has different numbers, though?
That's actually the best part.
Okay.
Because those differences in the numbers spark conversation.
Okay.
So team members get to explain their reasoning.
Okay.
They might highlight complexities that somebody else didn't think about, risks, dependencies that other people might have missed.
So it's not just about throwing out a number, but like actually
it's about the why.
Understanding why you chose that number.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it really helps to minimize bias.
Okay.
Because, no one's anchored to just one person's initial estimate.
I see.
And it helps uncover potential roadblocks early on, which can save so many headaches down the line.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So planning poker is great for consensus building.
It is.
And it gets everybody kind of invested
yes.
in the estimation process.
Exactly.
What if you need something even faster than that?
For those times, we have Fist of Five.
Fist of Five.
Yeah.
Now I'm picturing like everybody in a team huddle just like throwing up hand signals.
Yeah, basically.
Like we're at a rock concert.
Pretty much.
So how does Fist of Five actually work?
Well, it's a really easy way to gauge the team's confidence level in an estimate.
Okay.
So, 5 fingers means I'm completely on board.
Okay.
1 finger means I have serious concerns.
Okay.
And everything in between kind of provides some more nuanced feedback.
So it's kind of like a post check.
Exactly.
For the team.
Yeah. Without getting into like a long drawn out discussion.
Perfect for a busy Scrum Master or project manager.
Exactly.
All right. So we've got all these great estimation techniques in our Agile toolbox.
Yes.
Let's actually see how these play out in a real world example.
Okay.
Let's say we're tasked with delivering a new online shopping cart feature.
Okay.
I think is a pretty common scenario
for sure
for our listeners out there.
Yeah.
So let's break this down into some key components.
Okay.
We've got user login, adding items to a cart, the cart summary page, and of course the checkout process with payment integration.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
So walk us through how each of these estimation techniques would actually apply.
Okay, so let's start with story points.
Okay.
The team would kind of discuss each component and assign points based on its complexity, the effort, and the risk.
Okay.
So, for example, the login functionality might be a 3.
Okay.
Adding to the cart might be a 5.
My cart summary page might be an 8.
Okay.
And that checkout process is probably going to be a 13.
Yeah, because there's a lot more involved in that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Sensitive data, external APIs.
Yeah.
A lot of potential for things to go wrong.
So much more complex.
Definitely.
Okay, so then we'd use our team's velocity to kind of figure out how many sprints this would actually take.
Exactly.
So let's say our hypothetical team completes about 20 story points per sprint.
Okay.
This is probably going to take us about 2 sprints.
Yeah, it sounds about right.
To complete.
Yeah. Okay.
And then with t-shirt sizing, we might size the user login as a small, adding to cart as a medium, the cart summary as a large, and then that checkout process is an extra large.
Right, because of that complexity.
Exactly. Right. And then we could translate those t-shirt sizes into story points if we need to get more granular.
Okay, so what about those ideal days?
Okay, so with ideal days, the team might estimate 1 ideal day for login,
Okay.
2 for adding to the cart,
Okay.
3 for the cart summary,
Okay.
and maybe 5 for that complex checkout process.
Yeah.
But remember, this is in a perfect world with no distractions.
No meetings.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, thank you.
Right, so we need to sprinkle in a dose of reality
Yes.
and adjust those ideal day estimates upward.
Okay.
So we might multiply them by like 1.5 or even 2.
So instead of 11 ideal days,
Right.
we're actually looking at maybe like 16.5 to 22 actual days.
Yeah, something like that,
Right.
to get a more realistic projection.
Yeah.
Now, all of this is great for estimating individual features.
Right.
But what happens when we're dealing with bigger chunks of work, like entire releases or multi-team programs?
Right, because that's a whole other...
Well, that's a different beast.
Yeah, that's a whole other beast.
It is.
So how do those estimation techniques actually scale up?
Well, that's where we kind of need to shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
So for releases, you can still leverage the team's velocity to kind of project those timelines. So let's say your release backlog contains like 120 story points.
Okay.
And your team consistently completes 30 points per sprint.
Okay.
You're looking at about 4 sprints for that release.
Makes sense.
So that's kind of a good starting point.
Yeah, but I imagine when you're dealing with multiple teams on like a larger program, that gets a lot more...
It does. It gets way more complex.
Yep.
Because now you're rolling up all those individual team estimates.
Okay.
But you have to really pay attention to those dependencies between the teams.
Right, because one team might be waiting on another team
Exactly.
to finish something before they can even start.
Exactly. And that's often like the biggest headache in large projects.
Yeah, it's not the work itself, it's the waiting.
It's the waiting and the dependencies,
So risk management is even more important.
Oh, absolutely.
At that program level.
Yeah. You got to build in those buffers.
Right.
Anticipate those potential delays and make sure that you have really clear communication.
Yeah, and collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
Between the teams.
Very important.
It's like you're a conductor of an orchestra.
Exactly.
You got to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Make sure it all flows together.
So we're still using those same basic estimation techniques.
We are.
But we have to be really mindful of those dependencies.
And the risks.
And the risks,
At that bigger program level.
And estimation is not a one-time thing.
It's not.
It's a living, breathing process.
It is, because as a Scrum Master, you know you're going to be refining those estimates.
Right.
As the project evolves, as new information emerges.
Exactly. So to wrap things up, what's like the key takeaway?
I think the most important thing to remember is that estimation is not about being perfect. It's about being informed.
I like that.
It's about understanding, you know, the strengths and limitations of all these different techniques and choosing the approach that really best fits your team, your project, and your organization.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Exactly. Try different things. See what works for you.
Figure out what works best.
And the more you practice, the better you'll get at it.
Yeah. Estimation is definitely a skill
that
you develop over time.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end of our deep dive.
Our deep dive into project estimation.
Into project estimation techniques.
Yes.
We hope you found this exploration helpful.
Yes.
And that you feel a little bit better equipped.
A little more confident.
To handle all those estimations. Until next time, happy estimating.
Happy estimating, everyone. For releases, you can still leverage the team's velocity to kind of project those timelines. So let's say your release backlog contains like 120 story points. And your team consistently completes 30 points per sprint. You're looking at about 4 sprints for that release.
Makes sense.
So that's kind of a good starting point.
Yeah, but imagine when you're dealing with multiple teams.
It does.
On like a larger program, that gets a lot more...
It gets way more complex.
Like complicated.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
Because now you're rolling up all those individual team estimates. But you have to really pay attention to those dependencies. Between the teams.
Right, because one team might be waiting on another team.
Exactly.
To finish something before they can even start.
Exactly. And that's often like the biggest headache. In large projects.
Yeah. It's not the work itself, it's the waiting.
It's the waiting and the dependencies,
So risk management is even more important.
Oh, absolutely.
At that program level.
Well, crucial. You got to build in those buffers.
Right.
Anticipate those potential delays and make sure that you have really clear communication.
Yeah, and collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
Between the teams.
Very important.
It's like you're a conductor.
Yes.
Of an orchestra. You got to make sure everybody's on the same page.
Make sure it all flows together.
So we're still using those same basic estimation techniques.
We are.
But we have to be really mindful of those dependencies.
And the risks.
And the risks.
At that bigger program level.
And estimation is not a one-time thing.
It's not.
It's a living, breathing process.
It is, because as a Scrum Master, you know you're going to be refining those estimates as the project evolves, as new information emerges.
Exactly. So to wrap things up, what's like the key takeaway?
I think the most important thing to remember is that estimation is not about being perfect.
Okay.
It's about being informed.
I like that.
It's about understanding, the strengths and limitations of all these different techniques.
Yeah.
And choosing the approach that really best fits your team, your project, and your organization.
And don't be afraid to experiment.
Exactly. Try different things. See what works for you.
Figure out what works best.
And the more you practice, the better you'll get at it.
Yeah. Estimation is definitely a skill that you develop over time.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, I think we've reached the end.
We have.
Of our deep dive.
Our deep dive into project estimating.
Into project estimation techniques.
Yes.
We hope you found this exploration helpful.
Yes.
And that you feel a little bit better equipped.
A little more confident.
To handle all those estimations.
Yeah.
Until next time, happy estimating.
Happy estimating, everyone.